physical layer, like we starting with the N1 up to N70, 80, different bands are there. We identified your Reliance Jio band is N73. So mobile would report what bands it supports, what are the different bands it supports. So if any adjacent cells are configured in the bands that mobile is not supporting, so it cannot listen to that particular frequency. So obviously, there is no point in network asking the mobile equipment to measure the signal strength of those cells which belongs to that unsupported band. It is useless. So when the mobile equipment comes into the connected state, during that this capability information would be requested by the network to the mobile, because different mobiles will contain different capabilities in your real world. Every mobile won't have the same capabilities. It would be dependent on, like, by paying how much money you purchased a mobile and how many features that company decided to implement, whether that company is selling you release 17 mobile or release 16 mobile or release 15 mobile. So if they are selling you release 15 mobile, most of the features that are introduced in release 16 and upwards won't be present in the mobile. So network won't demand mobile equipment to perform that particular feature. Network, when it already knows that this particular feature is not supported in the mobile. Okay. So that's the overall idea behind this UE capability information. But it not only will provide you this UE NR capability, but if requested, it will also provide um, 0 about other capabilities as well. For example, UE UTRA capability, let us suppose. So UE MRDC capability. In this, you have details related to multi-radio dual connectivity. MRDC stands for whether you support other radio technology also or not. So if you are supporting other radio technology, what are the different details? So each one will be again expanded. Each details would be expanded related to it. So these are all the various information. Split SRB, split DRB, etc. All these things are related to the dual mechanisms. Okay, so that is UE capability information. Next. The next one that we are studying is RRC connection reconfiguration. What is it? It is reconfiguring an existing RRC connection that the mobile equipment is having. So it is basically initiated by the network to perform any one of these activities that are listed here. So we have again a successful scenario, failure scenario in this. In successful scenario or in failure scenario, you get a message called as RRC reconfiguration message from the network, asking the mobile that, hey, I'm reconfiguring the things for you. So indirectly, what mobile means is it is performing one of these activities that are listed here. It is establishing, modifying, releasing radio bearers, or setting up, modifying, or releasing measurements, perform reconfiguration with sync, add, modify, release conditional handover configuration, add, modify, release SLs and cell groups, add, modify, release conditional PSL change or conditional PSL addition. These last two parts we are going to ignore because we are not studying multi-cell scenarios. So S cells or PS cells are these cell multiple multi-cell scenarios we are not studying. So ignore last two parts. But these first four parts we have to understand. But this RRC reconfiguration can do any one of these four activities that are listed here. Now, um, whatever the request that is sent by the network to the mobile, if mobile successfully decided to accept it, that reconfiguration is fine with the mobile, then mobile would send reconfiguration complete to the network. Any proposed new configuration, if it is okay for the mobile, mobile would report RRC reconfiguration complete to network. Hey, the proposed reconfiguration is fine for me, man. I'm accepting it. I'm configuring myself according to the instructions that you have sent me. Thank you very much. I did that. But if not, if the UE has failed in understanding the reconfiguration sent by the network, or because of lot of other linked failures, any of the failure occurs when you are trying to reconfigure, then mobile will have only one choice to start some other procedure called as RRC connection re-establishment. In case if the RRC reconfiguration fails. Remember, this RRC re-establishment is not a single message. It is a procedure in its own merit. So that means if reconfiguration is a failure, it would trigger another procedure called as a re-establishment procedure. How that re-establishment procedure works, what are the details that would be present inside that, we'll find out. We'll find out more information on that little later. All right. So first we see the positive scenario. RRC reconfiguration, RRC reconfiguration complete. So for what different purposes this can be triggered? First, to establish, modify, and release radio bearers. And in case of backhaul RLC channels, like in dual sense scenarios, we use these backhaul RLC channels, but we can ignore that for time being. So to establish or modify or release the radio bearers that are already configured, or establish new bearers or modify the existing bearers or releasing the existing radio bearers, network would utilize this reconfiguration. For example, network can ask the mobile equipment that, hey, I would like to create a new data radio bearer. Why am I doing it? Because SMF have sent me a quality of service profile recently, ordering me to do that, ordering me to take up that activity. So um, start radio bearer, additional radio bearer creation, additional DRB creation. So network starting that. Or by using the same message, network can ask the mobile to set up the measurements. Because if a mobile is receiving reconfiguration, means it is definitely present in connected state. In connected state, which cells mobile will have to measure, which cell signal strength mobile will have to measure. Network will decide that on its own. Based on the mobile's present location, network can kind of find out what are the nearby adjacent cells. Network can also rank those cells. Uh, you know, like which cells we have to give first priority for the subscriber. Based on the ranking, it will network will ask the UE, hey, I'm asking you to measure the signal strength of these adjacent cells. So by using this RRC reconfiguration, network can configure that details. Or by using the same RRC connection reconfiguration, network can perform reconfiguration with sync, which is basically a mechanism of requesting for handover, asking the mobile equipment that, hey, you have to, it is the time for you to leave my cell, get into an adjacent cell. I'm providing you all the details that are required for you to successfully sync with the adjacent cell. I'm bringing you the adjacent cell related configuration. So it is the time for you to get out. So triggering, basically it is nothing but triggering a handover. And there is a new mechanism called as conditional handover that is, you know, implemented in advanced 5G NR scenarios. Conditional handover. So even that conditional handover configuration, we study that detailedly. So to trigger this conditional handover scenarios or modify that configurations or release that conditional handover configurations, for any of that, the network can use this reconfiguration. So this reconfiguration message that is sent from the network to mobile is not for a particular one single purpose. It can be used for various purposes as the things that are listed over here. So how does the mobile know uh, when it received this RRC reconfiguration message, what exactly network is asking it to do? How does the mobile know about it? Mobile knows that based on this message, based on the details present inside this message. This message contains a lot of optional mechanisms present inside. Now, depending on which options the network is sending the UE will get to understand, okay, what is network demanding from him? What exactly network is demanding from him? It'll understand. Mobile would be able to understand whether the network is asking me to establish the radio bearers or asking me to set up the measurements of the adjacent cells, or network asking me to go for a handover, or the network is asking me to um, uh, do the conditional handover configuration and deal with that conditional handovers. So what network is asking me, I will be able to find out by looking into the details that are present inside this message. So we get that clarity once we see the message itself. We get that clarity exactly what network can ask the mobile to do. So we're going into the details. RRC reconfiguration. So if you, it is containing a transaction identifier. If multiple parallel RRC messages are going on, every message will be given one ID, which we call as a transaction identifier. Fine. It also contains RRC reconfiguration IEs that would lead here, containing radio bearer config, cell group config, measurement config, and next release 1530 IEs. From there, it will keep going, leading to the others and others and others. Now, we already know radio bearer config, what radio bearer config can do. So we have already seen this as part of this radio bearer config message as part of RRC setup. I told you at that time that, hey, we are not studying this radio bearer config only for this radio connection. It can be used in other scenarios as well. I've told you that. So we will see that once again. For example, this radio bearer config. For that, we have to go back to the previous set of messages that we already have studied. So this is cell group config. Yeah, this is um, the details that are present inside your radio bearer config. So if you take a look at this radio bearer config, which we have studied as part of RRC setup, it contains details like SRB to add modify list. So network can ask the mobile equipment to configure new SRBs by sending this radio bearer config. Our network can ask the mobile equipment to release the or not to add the DRBs, or it can ask mobile to release the SRB3, that is dual case, which we are ignoring. If DRBs need to be added, modified, that list would be present. DRBs need to be released, that list would be present. And the security configuration would contain security configuration related details of that particular radio bearer. So individually, SRB to add modify, if there are any additional SRB that is getting modified. We already learned that only during RRC connection, only SRB1 gets configured. SRB2 won't get configured. SRB2 need to be configured at a later point in time. By using which message network would configure this? RRC reconfiguration message. It will use to configure the SRB2. Sorry, there was some more going on. Ignore that message. All right. So if DRB need to be added, what is the DRB identity and what is the PDCP configuration associated with it and so on. Okay, even this cell group config also we have studied. As part of it, you will have RLC bearer related configuration, logical channel identity, MAC cell group config, and physical cell group config. You know, these things will contain details like this RLC bearer config will contain for the new bearer that is coming up, RLC should be working in which mode, like which should be working in, let us suppose, UM mode or AM mode, what mode the RLC is going to come up. What is the logical channel identity? What is the logical channel priority, bucket size, duration, and prioritized bitrate, etc. So depending on the quality of service characteristic. So these details would be present when during this reconfiguration procedure. So as part of this cell group config, radio bearer config and cell group config. Now these two packages actually are optional. These radio bearer config and cell group config are optional. Uh, but if the network is by sending this RRC reconfiguration, if network is sending or asking the mobile equipment for establishing the radio bearers, so then definitely these two things won't be optional anymore. Definitely network would include these two things. Radio bearer config would be included and cell group config would be included. Explaining the details about uh, the radio PDCP configuration, RLC configuration, MAC logical channel configuration, etc. All the lower layer configuration for the upcoming radio bearer. But of course, this reconfiguration is not mandatorily perform or required to be performed only for adding the radio bearers. It can even be performed for deleting the radio bearers as well, if required to be deleted. Even in that cases also we need this radio bearer config. Okay. Now, Instead of when network is sending this reconfiguration message, instead of sending this radio bearer config or cell group config, assume that mobile equipment have sent, network have sent measurement config to the mobile. So then the meaning is network is asking the mobile equipment to measure the signal strength of the adjacent cells by configuring which cells mobile will have to measure. It will configure those details. So now we'll look into this measurement part. What exactly would be there inside this measurement? Remember, we will be studying, one piece here, one piece there, etc. We'll be doing it in combinations. So you have to realize that point. So first of all, uh, before studying this measurement config, we need to actually see some little details. Okay, so I will every every time I will tell you exactly where we are right now. I already have showed you how this RRC reconfiguration can be used for establishing the radio bearers or modifying the radio bearers or releasing the existing radio bearers. This is done with these two packages that I have pinpointed. A radio bearer config and cell group config contains those details about the newly coming up PDCP, RLC, MAC, and physical layer configurations that are associated with the new radio bearers that are coming, or radio bearers that are getting modified, or radio bearers that are getting released. Whenever network is asking the mobile equipment to uh, do this radio bearer reconfiguration. But the second one that I'm explaining is measurement config. So this second part. So network can set up, modify, or release measurements. So I have to first understand what is the meaning of these measurements, how this measurement mechanism work out, on what basis. What the deeper details in it. First we'll understand that. Then we'll go and look into that measurement config. Typically, this is how the measurements would be configured. Network would send a message to UE called as RRC reconfiguration. Inside it, it is going to include this measurement config package, explaining the details about the measurements that it is asking the mobile to configure. If mobile is accepting that measurements configuration, it will send a message back to the network, RRC reconfiguration complete, reporting that, hey, thank you very much for configuring the measurements on my side, and I'm really happy for that. I'm accepting it. It will report a positive acceptance message to the network in the form of RRC reconfiguration complete. Then the network understands that mobile is, definitely measuring the things that I have told him to measure. So mobile would keep measuring the signal strength of the cells that are requested from the network. Which cells network will request, that part we will see. That part we will try to understand. But network has asked the mobile to measure certain cells, and mobile is happy to measure it. It is accepting it by sending this reconfiguration complete. So whatever the cells that are requested are being measured right now. What mobile is actually is looking for while it is measuring the configured cells, it is looking for something called as an event criteria. First of all, what is this event? What is the criteria? Event criteria. Network will configure some measurement related criteria. with the mobile. Tell the mobile that, hey, if so and so measurement values you have reached for the present cell and the adjacent cell, then it is considered that you have reached a criteria, event criteria. Then you are supposed to send me a measurement report. You would send a measurement report to the network. When this event criteria sent from the network is matched, what are these events and what is the criteria for that event? So the events that we use in 5G NR or we have in 5G NR are the ones that are listed here. 5G NR events ranging from A1 to A6 and B1 and B2. And each and every event number has got a specific meaning and uh, it is conveying something to the network. For example, we have event A3, which represents neighboring cell becomes offset better than SP cell. SP cell is your present serving cell. Another technical name for that is SP cell, which we call it a special cell. So neighboring cell has become little better than offset. Whatever this offset is, that offset value would be provided by the network in this reconfiguration message in the measurement control. So it has become better than that provided value, network provided offset value. So neighboring cell is better than the present cell. That criteria met. Immediately mobile would send a report to the network. Hey, you have asked me to measure the signal strength of the present cell and adjacent cell, which I agreed. You also told me that, measure the signals of the cells, present cell as well as the adjacent cells and compare them. And when compared, I have to come to a decision whether this a neighbor value and the present cell values are matching to this A3 event criteria that you have sent me. So I observed that the neighboring cell signal strength is little better than, offset better than the SP cell, the offset that is provided by you. I found that. That is why I'm sending this measurement report to you, explaining the same situation that it occurred, that this particular event occurred. Now, when you report this, it kind of be useful for the network to make a handover decision. Says that, okay, so this bugger is in the edge of the cell. So present cell is not doing good. So it is finding that the neighboring cell is better than the present cell. It found out. And it is not just better. So there is event A4, event A3. Look at event A4. You are reporting that neighbor is better than a threshold value. But you are not telling the network that neighbor is fully better. Neighbor is better than the present cell. Neighbor is better than one threshold value provided to you by the network. Neighbor cell is better than the threshold value, but it is not better than the present cell. So there is difference between A3 and A4. You are in A4, you are just pricing the neighboring cell. You are not cribbing the present cell. But in A3, you are pricing the neighboring cell in relation with the present cell. You are telling that neighboring cell is better than the present cell. But again, that doesn't mean that the present cell is really, really bad. It may not be the case. Your present cell is maybe still operational. You can still work around with the present cell itself. You can maintain your radio connection with the present cell. Just because you are reporting that the neighboring cell is becoming better than the present cell doesn't mean the present cell is bad. Okay, now if you take a look at A5 event, it is reporting that the SP cell, that is nothing but the present cell, is becoming worse than a threshold value that is provided by the network. The lowest power value that is sent to you by the network. It is worse than the threshold value. At the same time, neighboring cell is becoming better than another threshold value that is again provided by the network. That means you are reporting two situations here. Your present cell is becoming pretty bad. Bad, you know, it has become worse than provided threshold value by the network. That means it's pretty bad. At the same time, neighboring cell is really becoming good. It is better than another threshold that is provided by the network as part of this RRC reconfiguration. Only network know what is the size of the cell, and what when mobile equipment find what signal strength in the cell, that cell should be considered as a good cell. Based on it, it will suggest these parameters and their values to the UE in this RRC reconfiguration message. Configure all these different parameters. I would explain these things with details once again. Simple thing. Um, let us consider let us consider simply the decibel values or dBm values, decibel milliwatts. Network in this RRC reconfiguration has suggested the mobile that, hey, if the power difference between the neighboring cell and your present cell is more than 3 dB, for example, then you please consider A3 event is met. Network is asking. So the power difference between the neighboring cell and the present cell more than 3 dB in a positive way. That means neighboring cell signal strength is 3 dB higher than the present cell. That is event A3. Event A4, neighbor becomes better than a threshold value. What is this threshold? It is not in comparison with the present cell. A4 is. A4 is network telling the mobile that, hey, I'm going to give you a perfect threshold value. For example, if you get minus 57 dBm in the adjacent cell, you please consider this minus 57 dBm as the threshold value. If your signal strength from the neighboring cell is any better than minus 57 dBm, you can report me event A4 measurement event. You can report me that it is better. Now, is this minus 57 dBm, is it 3 dB better than the present cell? Not, no. It is not better than the present cell. So this 3 dB better could be in any situation. For example, this 3 dB better situation is, what are the different possibilities? A present cell can be minus 60, adjacent cell can be minus 57. Our present cell can be minus 61, adjacent cell can be minus 58. A present cell can be minus 62, adjacent cell can be minus 57, 59. In any one of these scenarios, A3 meets, because whatever the offset value that is provided, the comparison value that is provided between the adjacent cell and the present cell has been met. That criteria is met. Is that clear? Are you understanding? We are comparing neighboring cell with the present cell. But in A4, what are we doing? We are only asked by the network that, hey, if your neighboring cell is better than a threshold value that I'm exclusively providing, like better than minus 57 dBm, you report me. But this is not in comparison with A3, in comparison with the present cell. Threshold value itself, dBm will be provided. It is not dB. dB is a comparison value. In A3 case, we'll have the dB comparison value. But in A4 case, we'll have a threshold, direct absolute value would be provided to you by the network. Now, what is A5? A5 is asking the mobile equipment to measure the signal strength and asking the mobile equipment to report about two different things. What is it? Network has told the UE that, hey, if your adjacent cell is becoming better than minus 57 dBm, at the same time, if your present cell is becoming worse than minus 75 dBm, so it is providing two threshold values. So um, this is threshold 2, this is threshold 1 in this explanation here. So network has asked the mobile, if SP cell has become worse than the threshold minus 75 dBm, and at the same time you have observed that neighboring cell is becoming better than the threshold value minus 57 dBm or lower, minus 57 dBm and lower is minus 56 dBm or minus 55 dBm or minus 54 dBm, anything below that threshold. So you're reporting that the present cell is really bad, you're reporting. At the same time, you are also reporting that the adjacent cell is really good, or adjacent cell is good at least, where you can survive. This is too bad for a signal strength. So here, A5 is reporting that both these things are occurring at the same time. So when the mobile equipment, if you take two cells, if it is traveling, maybe at this particular juncture, mobile will feel that it will have to report A4 at the edge of it. Right now, it is present in this cell. At this edge, mobile will feel E4, A4. What is that A4? You are reporting neighbor is becoming better than the threshold. That means you are reporting that whatever the threshold that is provided by the network, minus 57 dBm, the edges from the adjacent cell, you got that minus 57 dBm power because you are moving towards that cell in this direction. Like this, you are moving. Okay. At this particular stage, at this location, maybe for example, now it is the time for you to report A3. Now you are doing the comparison. Neighbor becoming offset better than the SP cell. So if you count the signal strength here, the signal strength of the adjacent cell is better than your present cell based on the distance and how much strength you are getting from these two signals, because mobile is measuring the signal strength of both these cells. So it's finding that. Okay, now if the mobile keeps moving, mobile goes here, it would report event A5, where mobile clearly says that SP cell is worse than the threshold. It is out of bounds. It is worse than minus 75 dBm. So any moment I may lose the radio link. So A5 is almost like dead bells. So you're ringing the dead bells, basically saying to the network that I can't survive anymore. I think I am almost going to lose my radio link in a minute or so, or in a half a second or so. I may lose my radio link if this continues. So you're here. At the same time, you are also reporting that neighboring is really good. Whatever the threshold value that is provided by the network, it's crossing the threshold. It may not be minus 57 dBm. It could be minus, for example, minus 37 dBm. Network has asked. So you are reporting that yes, it is better than minus 37 dBm for the new cell. But old cell, it is crossed minus 75 dBm. Are you clear with these three events? Understood? Okay. So the other events, event A6, neighbor becomes offset better than the serving cell, which we'll ignore. Sorry, secondary cell. So the secondary cell concept we are not studying. This is related to dual carrier cases. So We'll ignore this A6 event for time being. Okay. Let us suppose mobile reported event A2. So what is the meaning of mobile reporting event A2? Our network asking you to report event A2. You look at the event. Serving becomes worse than the threshold. You are only reporting about the serving. You are telling that the serving cell is become very bad. That is what um, mobile equipment need to report. But why are you not pricing the adjacent cells? Why are we not pricing it? So there is a tricky point here related to this A2. What is it? So for this, we have to consider one cell and its adjacencies. Let us consider the operating frequency here is F1. This is F1. This is F1. This is F2. This may be F3. This is 4G cell. And this is also 4G cell. Assume that this is the situation we are in. Basically, according to the ranking of the cells, when the mobile equipment is present in the F1, obviously the same frequency cells are the favorite for the network. So what does the GNODB do when the mobile equipment gets connected in this middle cell F1 is? It will tell the mobile by using this RRC reconfiguration or by using these measurements, it will ask the mobile that, hey, you have to measure the signal strength of this present cell. So this present cell, we are calling it as SP cell or special cell. You have to measure the signal strength of this cell, plus you have to measure the signal strength of these cells, which also belongs to same frequency, F1 frequency itself. So I am asking you to provide the measurements only related to these three cells. I don't want you to report the measurement of all the cells that are surrounding. Please don't do that. Only I'm asking you to measure the signal strength of these higher ranked cells, because they belongs to same frequency. So network will provide the details to UE only these two adjacent cells information and their frequencies and ask the mobile to measure. And network also will tell the mobile uh, when to report which event or uh, uh, what is the threshold values for each event. It will clearly explain the details to UE. In the message, we will see those details. It will explain those details to UE. But the problem is, let us suppose that UE started going towards this particular cell, is somewhere here at this edge. When it is here, mobile equipment is measuring the signal strength of the present cell and mobile is measuring the signal strength. F1. But when mobile reports F1s, the problem is that mobile will try to find out the signal strength of F1s. It will never find any of those two F1s to be good, because it is not moving in that direction. It is moving the opposite direction into this 4G cell area where there are no 5G cells available. So now when mobile reported event A2, reporting to the network that, hey, man, I'm finding my present cell signal strength is deteriorating and it is worse than a threshold value. At the same time, I'm not finding any one of the cells that you have provided me in the RRC reconfiguration while configuring the measurements. Any one of those cells, I did not find them to be good. So this F1 cell and this F1 cell are not good for me. My present cell is becoming bad. So what should I do? So it's kind of questioning the network. Network may quickly take a decision. It will come back with a fresh RRC reconfiguration, with a fresh measurement config. Tell the mobile equipment that, hey, you please stop the previous configuration, previous measurements related to these two cells, because you told me that they are not good. Only present cell is becoming bad. I think you can stop measuring these F1 cells. Now I am asking you to measure the signal strength of this F2 cell. That is also 5G cell only, but a different frequency cell. You report me the status of this F2. So that is the next ranked one. in this order. Same frequency ones are higher ranked, other frequency one is next ranked. So network is asking to provide, stop the previous ones and start the measurements related to F2 now. But even after measuring F2, mobile would again report A2, reporting that my serving cell is still becoming worse than the threshold value. So I'm not finding it to be any good at all. It's looking even worse. Okay, then network will again come to a quick realization. Oh, mobile is not even going, even traveling towards F2. So better we'll ask the mobile equipment to measure the signal strength of F3, the next in that ranking order. It belongs to NR only again. Now, again mobile says, no, not good. Still my serving is becoming bad. In such cases, the only option that is left out for the network is, network tells the mobile that, hey, I kept on trying, but you told none of the cells to be good. I think you seem to be moving towards the area where 5G cells are not available, only 4G cells are available. Now I don't have a choice but to ask you to measure the signal strength of the present cell, which is SP cell, plus the 4G cells. I'll ask you to measure. So it configures inter-RAT events and their threshold values, which are applicable for other radio access technology. Here, RAT stands for radio access technology. So 5G is considered as one radio access technology, 4G is considered as another radio access technology. So network is asking the mobile that, hey, you have to now measure the signal strength of 4G cells. Tell me if they are good. If they are good, I will actually go and speak to 4G components by using AMF's help. So I will move you there. I will do handover for you into 4G network. I can do that for you. So report me what are you feeling about 4G cells. So inter-RAT events would be configured. When mobile kept on reporting that none of the 5G cells are good, including the present cell. So this A2 event would kind of tell the network that present configuration is no good. Whatever the cells you have asked me to measure are no good, because I'm not finding any of the cells to be good, including the present cell, serving cell. So demanding network to either reconfigure the measurements, to configure some new cells to measure. That's what you are demanding, network, indirectly. So that is event A2. You're just complaining about the serving. Indirectly tells the network that this guy is not feeling good about any of the cells I have configured, including present. If mobile would have found any one of the cells to be good, it would have reported either event A3 or event A4 or event A5. Along with cribbing the present cell, you would have at least priced the neighboring cells. If you are traveling towards in this direction or in this direction, if you are traveling, definitely mobile would have priced one of these cells by sending this A3 or A5 report instead of A2 report. Are you getting this logic, guys? Is it getting clear for you? Okay, so what are these other inter-RAT events? B1, inter-RAT neighbor becomes better than the threshold value. So you started measuring the 4G cells, you found out that one of the 4G cell is better than the threshold value provided by the network. Like maybe, for example, crossed minus 57 dBm, you're reporting. But at the time when you are reporting B1, there is not much trouble with your present cell. Typically, most of the times you never report B1 until unless you are in a 5G cell where all your neighboring cells are 4G cells only. There are not even a single other 5G cell available. Normally, in such cases, you would be reporting event B1, where you're you're sending this report and telling the network that. So when you have every cell in the adjacency as 4G cells, when network is configuring, network won't configure these NR events. Instead, network will only configure inter-rat events because all the adjacent cells are 5G cells. So mobile, when it goes near to any 4G cell, it will report, it will not crib about the present cell, not yet, but it is basically telling that you are getting some amount of good signal strength from the adjacent 4G cells. In such cases, you report event B1. But normally, when you have only few 4G cells, first you will always try 5G cells. If they are not good, then only network will ask you to measure the signal strength of 4G cells. So already you have reported A2. That means that serving is already becoming worse than the threshold value. Now, if suddenly network asks you to measure the signal strength of the 4G cells, definitely 4G cell, the criteria that would be met is B2, where your present cell, P cell, typically is your primary cell, becomes worse than the threshold value, and inter-rat neighboring cell is becoming better than the threshold value. So you're reporting that your present cell is becoming bad, and at the same time, inter-rat neighbor is now becoming good. That means you're reporting to the network that you have found out a inter-rat cell which is looking good for you. So you're indirectly demanding the network to move you from 5G network into 4G network by sending event B2. What about event A1? Event A1 is serving becomes better than the threshold value. You already reported A2 and explained to the network that serving is becoming worse than a threshold. But after some time, the mobile user took a U-turn and started going back into the same old serving cell. So then you kind of canceling this event A2 by sending event A1. You're reporting it with event A1 that, hey, my present cell is again becoming better than the threshold value that you have sent me earlier as part of the measurement configuration. So that means you are indirectly telling the network, I wanted to like kind of continue in the in the present cell itself. I would not like to move now. It's okay, I can survive here because it has become better than the threshold value. So obviously, it is the duty of the network to decide to ask the mobile equipment which cells to measure and what are the threshold values for different event reports for satisfying these conditions. What are the threshold values? So network need to provide. Is this clear, everyone? Have you understood these events and specific linking?
Sorry, both A3 and A4 have a possibility to occur. So,
Both
yeah, A3 and A4.
A3 and A4. It will not occur. It might occur parallelly. Actually, that is possible. But even when they are happening parallelly, A3 would be reported. A4 won't be because what is A3 talking about? Neighbor becomes offset better than your serving cell. That means it is better than threshold. At the same time, it is better than the serving cell. So you will be reporting A3, where you will be pricing neighboring cell and cribbing the present cell with G-node being. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how this measurement configuration would work out? So we go back to where we are coming here from. So we have to study this measurement config that is part of our RRC reconfiguration IEs, where network is sending you this optional measurement config, asking the mobile equipment to start some particular measurements of the cells that it is going to suggest. Of course, mobile equipment will have, sorry, network will have to definitely have this information about for the present cell, what are the adjacent cells. That information definitely be present in the database inside the GNodeBees database. We call it as neighbor relationship tables or NRT tables. In the form of it, it will maintain the what are the adjacent cells present located. How GNodeB will know how many adjacent cells are present, etc. So we will try to understand that a little bit in XNAP protocol studying time. So in tomorrow's session, we'll look into it. But we are assuming for granted that mobile already knew for the present mobile equipment located cell, what are the adjacent cells available? And GNodeB already might have ranked those cells for the mobile. From the mobile's point of view, which cell should be considered as higher ranked cell. On the basis of it, these measurements would be configured. So now, measurement config, what details would be present inside this measurement config? You have different lot of information in it. Almost all the packages are optional. So while sending this, measurement objects to remove list. Normally, when would it would be removed? GNodeB already started measurements, but mobile sent A2 measurement report explaining that the present cell is becoming bad and you are not pricing any of the adjacent cells. Then I have told you that GNodeB stops the ongoing measurements and starts measurements towards the new cells. It will ask the mobile to measure some other cells. So in such cases, so this measurement object to remove list need to be present. But when remove list is there, it is simply going to be, for every measurement, there is going to be a unique ID at the time of configuration. Network will give you one ID for the measurements. So it is simply going to quote that ID and tell that, hey, whatever the measurement that I have sent you earlier to start, I have quoted this ID number 5, measurement ID number 5. That measurement ID number 5, you stop it now. You don't need to measure that related measurements anymore. So that is remove list. Corresponding measurement configuration also need to be released. Configuration remove list. Measurement ID to remove list. Measurement object need to be removed. Measurement ID would be removed. What is the difference between them? I will explain one by one. Positioning gap. Positioning measurements, pre-configuration remove list, as you can see here. Measurement gap pre-configure remove list. Okay. We are ignoring this position related measurement parts. But first of all, what will be there inside this measurement object to add modify list? What details would be there? So this add modify list is what contains the important information. What measurements to be added? So where do we need to look for that? Measurement objects to add modify list. We go to the spec. So this measurement object to add modify list contains a measurement object ID. At a later point in time, this ID itself would be used for removing at the time when it required to be removed by the network. But at the time of configuration, this ID would be picked. Unique number. For example, if already measurement object numbers 5, 6 are already present with the mobile, if new measurement need to be configured towards a new cell, network would use measurement ID 7, something like that. Just a number. It could be just simply 1, 2, 3 also. Okay. Now, what measurement object network is configuring? Network is configuring NR related measurements or UTRA related measurements or UTRA related measurements. UTRA is UMTS or is the measurement network configuring side link or other things related to the side link, which we'll ignore. So these things are enough for us for time being. So measurement object NR. So that means if network is asking you to measure the adjacent NR cells, so corresponding details would be present inside this measurement object NR. If network is asking you to measure LTE cells, 4G cells, then in this package the details would be present. If network is asking you to measure 3G cells, when there is no 4G network also present, only 3G network is present, then UTRA related cells related measurement object details. So now we'll go into these deeper details. Measurement object NR. So that is located here, measurement object NR. So when you go here, you'll have a lot of details about that cell in which it is asking you to measure. First, it is going to send you this SSB frequency. What is the frequency where this SS block is going to be located in that NR cell that is asking you to measure? Because you should not be searching for it in the other cell where the SSB block is. As the SSB block is allowed to be placed anywhere in the band, you have to search for it. But if the value is provided, the 1.44 megahertz range value is clearly provided, you know where to find SSB block. Because SSB block could be used for measuring the signal strength by using your reference signals located in it, or by using the SSS signals, secondary synchronization signals. You can measure the signal strength. Now the details will be much more deeper. Like, for example, number of SS blocks to average to report the status, your power value. How many SS blocks you take power value and average them out, and find out the average value. And if that average value is crossing something, then you have to report it on the basis of that. Now in this measurement objects NR, you will have the most important details about cells to add modify list and cells to remove list. Cells to add modify list is what are the new cells that are getting added. Our network is asking you to measure these new additional cells that are present in the adjacency. So the list of cells and their cell related details would be present. So if you take a look at that cells to add mod, it contains the physical cell ID, the scrambling code of the cell, and there is a cell of individual offset value, Q offset range that is applicable for that cell. Now, along with this cells to add modify, you have this important parameter called as threshold NR. So that is packed here. Threshold NR. So when you can measure two different types of channels to measure the signal strength, either SS block or you can measure CSIRS reference signals, channel state information reference signals. So when you are asked to measure SS block to measure the signal strength, what is the threshold values you have to consider? When CSIRS, what are the threshold values? So that values would be provided here. What value range? So they will be provided in terms of RSRP, RSRQ, and SAMR. So stands for reference signal received power, reference signal received quality, and SAMR is signal to noise ratio. They are all either the quality is typically in the dB value, RSRP is in dBm, and SAMR is signal to noise ratio value. So they will have the integer values, but the integer values will lead to power values like dBm and dBs. There are tables and different information provided for that, for this RSRP range, RSRQ range, SAMR range. But you can find out those deeper details later on your own. I'm just explaining you the concept. Okay. Why three different thresholds? What are these three different thresholds? Signal strength of a cell can be measured either by using RSRP units or RSRQ units or SIMR units. What is the meaning of different units? For example, somebody asked you, what is your weight? Now, you can tell your weight in multiple measurement units. For example, if you are an Indian, most probably you would be answering in kgs. Hey, I'm like, 55 kgs or 72 kgs, something like that. You would be telling a number in kg. But if you ask a European, same question, they would be kind of telling you in pounds, which is nearly equal to half a kg, basically. So they would tell you that I'm 180 pounds. Both are weights. Are both of you are like reporting two different things? No, it is the same thing. Same way, when you have to measure the radio signal strength, it can be quantified in various ways. By just measuring the received signal, reference signal received power, you can estimate what is the signal strength. Or you can find its quality also, received reference signal received quality, or signal to noise interference ratio. These are multiple different ways of quantifying the signal strength. Network may ask you to measure any one of it. They're all are optional. Or it can ask you to measure multiple things also. It's dependent on what network is choosing you. But network, whenever it is choosing these measurement objects to add, modify, it will clearly explain, is it going to measure the things based on SSB or CSIRS? So it will explain by using which reference signals, SSB block or CSI part, you have to measure the signal strength in this measurement config. So based on that, the corresponding details would be provided over here. Next, we go back. So you are getting cell IDs, their thresholds, and details like that. For each cell, you are getting a threshold value. Just like we have the measurement object NR, similar things will be there for measurement object UTRA. What is the frequency of that cell? And how many cells you are adding in the UTRA list? So UTRA cell related details. So you will have information about UTRA physical cell ID. There is a scrambling code concept in LTE also. That scrambling code and the cell related details. And basically LTE related information would be provided. Okay. So we go back. So that is one important thing. So these measurement objects to add, modify is kind of telling you what cells network is asking you to measure. NR cells or LTE cells, the cell related details, everything is present in this measurement object part. Now, what would be there present in this reporting config to add, modify? This reporting config to add, modify would contain details about when to report. Network asked you to measure, but when you have to report. So you have to look for that. Reporting config. Reporting config to add, modify list, which is containing reporting config NR. So we have to go to that reporting config NR. Here details, reporting config NR details will be about A1 to A6 series, A1 to A6 events. So for each event, the threshold values, their respective threshold. For some events, you will be provided with two thresholds. For example, for event A5, we require two thresholds, threshold 1, threshold 2. Threshold 2, 1 is related to the present cell, threshold 2 is related to the neighboring cell or secondary cell in the dual case. So if you take a look at that, what kind of a reporting criteria is being set? It can ask for periodic reporting. If it is periodic reporting, there will be a time set for the periodic reporting. If I go to the periodic reporting part, periodic reporting configuration, it can ask you what is the reporting interval. It will provide you some time and tell you that, hey, you have to keep sending me measurement reports irrespective of whether you are reaching any particular event or not. I don't care whether an event is getting satisfied or not, but I would like to know the I would like to know the situation from your side every some X amount of time, every some reporting interval. This is called as periodic measurement reports. These are not event driven. The network can now choose. Network can either ask the mobile equipment to send the measurement reports periodically, for example, every 15 milliseconds once or every 200 milliseconds once. So it can set a timer and it will say, irrespective of what happens on your side, send me a report. What's going on? I would like to know. That is one thing. Second way of doing it is network telling the mobile equipment that, hey, you have to report me only when a particular event criteria is met. I will provide you all the event related threshold values. So if it is event based mechanism, you have the event triggering configuration would be there. So in the event trigger configuration, as you can see here, event ID. So when you have to report event A1, what is the threshold value that is related to event A1? So when you hit this threshold, then you are allowed to report event A1, which is a cancellation event for A2. Similarly, when you will report A2, when you report this particular quantity that is being reported here, requested here, when you hit that, you would be sending this A2 measurement report. So there is some hysteresis value, time to trigger, etc. That means immediately you won't report. You will wait and see, like for example, a couple of milliseconds. If the situation is consistently the same, then you will actually be sending the measurement report. So that is about this hysteresis and time to trigger. But ultimately, the major important point is this triggering criteria, the A2 threshold and the triggering criteria. So, but when we come to A3 is given to you in the form of offset. Offset means a comparison. It is not a threshold value. It is a comparison between two cells. A3 is. So we are comparing present cell and the adjacent cell in terms of dB. So the value would be provided. Next, A4. When it comes to A4, you have only one threshold, because A4 is reported when the adjacent cell is becoming good, better than a threshold value. But you are not required to compare it with the present cell. You are not doing anything related to the present cell. You're reporting only for the adjacent cell. But event A5 is one event where you will be reporting it for both present cell as well as the adjacent cell. So you will be, your first threshold is to crib your present cell. So your present cell value is gone below this value, less than this quantity requested. And at the same time, this threshold to the neighboring cell value crossed this threshold value. This threshold 2, it crossed. Both events occurred at the same time. So here two different threshold values are provided. It is not a comparison between the two cells. Each cell have got its own threshold value. But A3 is a comparison. Comparison between the two cells and their power values. A6 we are ignoring. Similarly, so these are the, if NR cells are reported to be configured to be reported, then these details would be sent. If it is inter-RAT, reporting configuration is inter-RAT purpose, then reporting config inter-RAT would be there, where you will have the reporting criteria for UTRA cells or inter-RAT cells. So event B1, when you report event B1, when your present adjacent ultra cell is better than a threshold value that is provided. So this is providing you the threshold value. Now event B2 is reporting both. You are reporting that ultra cell is better. At the same time, your present cell is bad. So two triggering quantities provided here in event B2. So are you understanding this now? Are you linking it up? Is it getting clear? Two thresholds in A5, only one threshold in A3, A4. I'll ask you one question here at this stage. Can anyone tell me if event A3 is reported, do you think handover will be triggered or not? That's my question. Participate, guys. Come on, participate. Yes, somebody is saying yes. Okay. A lot of you are saying yes, but the correct answer is not yes. It may be, may not be. That is the correct answer. Why not? If you are reporting A3, what is the literal meaning of it? You are reporting that the neighboring is better than the present cell. But that doesn't mean that the present cell is literally bad. You are not cribbing the present cell. You are only reporting that neighboring is little better than the present cell, offset better than the present cell. Now, if the network provided the offset value to be very small, in while requesting for this measurement report, it has provided only, for example, 1 dB as offset. So that means neighbor is like minus 59 dBm and your present cell is minus 60 dBm. Now, in such situations, network might not even trigger even if you send a measurement report explaining that the neighbor is minus 59 and your present cell is minus, um, you know, minus 60. You won't, network may not trigger the handover. Says that I think I can wait for a little bit more time. And moreover, network also will have additional details called as the target cell related load. If the mobile network sees that target cell is very heavily loaded, there are already a lot of subscribers fighting for the resources in the target cell. If source guy got to know about it somehow, it says that, oh, if that is the case, if I move the subscriber into the target cell, I kind of making the subscriber, starve for the resources there in the new cell, and it will kind of cause a problem for already an existing problem for in the target cell. Better, I will keep the mobile equipment waiting. Let the mobile equipment report A5, where mobile equipment is now reporting that there is no choice other than but move. So A5 is a sure shot event. A3 may not be. A3 would be dependent on your load and various other characteristics. Network may take the decision. So A3, you were indirectly telling that there is still time. You are not cribbing the present cell. Your present cell is not become too bad. It is become bad when you compare with a neighbor. For example, when you report event A4, there is even in event A4 case also, there is no, there can be handover occurring, there may not be handover occurring in event A4. Again, the situation is your pricing neighbor, it is becoming better than a threshold value. Now, if the neighbor cell load is very high, even if you keep pricing the neighboring cell, network may not move you there by seeing that situation there, load-based problem. But if you price the neighbor with A4, but you did not clip the present cell, but still network can do you a handover. In which situation? Network is already facing lot of trouble in the present cell. Present cell load is very high. Lot of subscribers are fighting for the resources. Network is rejecting lot of them based on admission control mechanisms, etc., etc. So network would try to ease out the traffic in the present cell in such kind of situation. The moment mobile sent event A4 pricing the neighboring cell is little better than the threshold value, network will see an opportunity to reduce the load on the present cell. Says that, hey, mobile, you telling me event A4, you are indirectly giving me hint that you are okay with the neighboring cell also. So I'm asking you to get out. Please go into neighboring cell, use the services there. At least I will reduce my load in my present cell. So this load in the present cell and in the adjacent cells also will play a role while making the decisions in the handovers. It is not purely on the basis of what mobile equipment is reporting. Of course, there are sure shot events like event A5 where mobile equipment is indirectly almost telling the network that any moment my radio link is going to be lost. So if you provide me a quick solution for it and move me to the adjacent cell, it is better. Because you're reporting bad about the present cell and you're reporting very good about the adjacent cell signal strength. So there, in event A5 case, you don't take load into much of the consideration. Because if you consider load into your algorithm and decide to delay the subscriber's radio link gets lost. So you did not give the chance to the mobile equipment at least to attempt to go into the adjacent cell. So you first attempt it. Whatever happens, happens. Even if there is a load, we can't do anything. Because when the subscriber is moving, we have to move the subscriber into the new cell. Keep moving. You cannot keep holding him back. Okay, so what are the other details? Measurement ID to add modify list. It is just ID. Measurement ID linked to measurement object ID. Measurement object ID is linked with cells. That is linked with measurement ID. So whenever it is reported, they will be reported together. And what is the linking configuration for that particular measurement object and measurement ID? All of them are linked together because all these three packages work together. In this quantity config, you will have the details about exactly which quantities you are going to measure in that quantity config. If it is for NR, quantity config RS that is present here, where you are going to measure SSB filtering or CSI-RS filtering config and the corresponding RSRP, RSRQ, SINR related filter coefficients and the parameters that are used for counting the perfect power values. The details would be available here. So all these filter coefficients, etc., will go into formulas while filtering and deciding when you have to send a report. You won't be immediately sending the report. There will be some filters also. You will be taking a decision on the basis of consistency. Consistently, the same thing is happening for some time. Okay, next. Measurement gap config, the last one. What is this measurement gap? When mobile will have to measure the signal strength of the same radio frequency cells, these measurement gaps are kind of not required. First of all, what is the measurement gap? Why do we need? Normally, we require when mobile equipment is measuring the signal strength of the present cell which belongs to frequency 1 and the adjacent cell which belongs to frequency 2. If you have to measure two different frequencies, definitely some gap would be given to you because there is uplink data going on and downlink data coming in. If continuously you are downloading and uploading, So you must be on F1 itself. You cannot move to F2 to measure the signal strength of F2 because data is continuously transferring in uplink and downlink. And that means network is scheduling you continuously on the PDCCH channel without stopping. So you have to listen to PDCCH continuously and you have to keep downloading, uploading. You don't have enough time to do measurements. But mobile requires some time to go to F2 because your antenna can only either listen to F1 radio frequency or F2. It cannot listen to both. Especially if the mobile is a single frequency capable mobile, it cannot listen to two frequencies at the same time. It can listen to either F1 or F2. So if F1 is keeping you busy while downloading, uploading the data, because we are talking about measurements in the connected mode, mobile equipment is in connected means it is using the services. So definitely your traffic is ongoing. So you have to give a gap to that. If that gap is not provided, mobile can't measure F2. This it could be F2 or it could be LTE cell or it could be any other frequency cells. Are there any other frequencies other than the present frequency? In such cases, we have to configure these gaps. So network will tell you that, hey, I'm going to give you a gap every now and then from the transmission and reception of the data. So in that particular gap, so what you can do is uh, you can leave the present cell, tune with the adjacent cell, and measure the adjacent cell. So measurement gap. So you have this gap FR1 gap config. So it will tell you details like how much gap it is going to provide you in terms of time units. Various sub details are there. I am not going to explain you, but you can easily understand it. Like simply, for example, if it is set to MS3, so 3 milliseconds gap is provided to you. In that gap, network is promising you that, hey, I won't send you any information on PDCCH for you, either for your uplink scheduling or downlink scheduling. I'm kind of giving a gap for your transmission and reception. You utilize this time, leave frequency F1, go to frequency F2, measure it, quickly come back to F1 once again, tune with the same cell, and then you send me that measurement report. What are you feeling about the adjacent cell, which I have asked for? So in this gap, you are going to take care of that activity. So all these details together are called as measurement config. But it is not always configuring. It is not always add modify. It can be remove also. When network decided to discontinue asking you to measure the signal strength of some particular cells, it will report to which cells to be removed, which with what ID and what configuration linked with it need to be removed. So once the details are provided, mobile knows that I have to stop the so-and-so measurements which are earlier configured. So network can continuously send this RRC reconfiguration and keep modifying the measurements. So RRC connection reconfiguration used for setting up, modifying, releasing measurements. We studied how that now. Next, we already have seen here that if an event criteria is met, mobile is supposed to send a measurement report. Even though it is outside the scope of our message, this is not part of RRC reconfiguration. This measurement report is going to be sent separately. It's a separate procedure altogether, this one single message. But we will study it so that this particular mechanism is finished. So we'll look into this measurement report. So this contains measurement report IEs. That measurement report IEs contains measurement results. Now that measurement results, we will expand it in our document. Here. These measurement results, when mobile is reporting it, measurement ID will be kept as the reference number. So for which measurement ID you are reporting, and it is going to contain two sub packages in it in the measurement result. What is the present serving cell measurement information? It is going to report first serving cell related measurement, then neighboring cells. Those neighboring cells could be NR cells or UTRA cells or UTRA cells or side link cells. But depending on what mobile is reporting, all of these things are optional. Basically, this is a choice. Choice means you will be able to pick up only one of it out of these packages. So if you send NR, you don't need to send UTRA or SL. If you send UTRA, you don't need to send NR, UTRA and SL, not required. So one of it, you will be picking it. So if you take a look at measurement results NR and these measurement results serving MO list, those sub details, measurement results serving MO. So what is the serving cell ID for which you are reporting, and what is the measurement result of the serving cell, and what is the measurement result for the best neighboring cell? You're reporting two things. But if you are reporting measurement results NR, which contains measurement result NR, where you clearly explain the physical cell ID, and for that particular physical cell ID, what is the SS block measurement values or CSI RS block measurement quantity result values you are going to report. Which one you are measuring, SSB you are measuring or CSI RS you are measuring, and based on that report for the NR cells, adjacent NR cells. This is only reporting best neighbor, that's all. But as part of the measurement results NR, there could be multiple of them present. And you can also report about which triggering event is occurring if required. You can report that. And if it is measurement result UTRA, you are going to have UTRA physical cell ID, LTE cell ID, and the LTE measurement results, measurement quantity of UTRA, where you are reporting either RSRP, RSRQ, or SINR in UTRA, the range values for the adjacent cells. So when you send this measurement report, depending on whether you are sending it for present cell as well as the adjacent cell, network can identify which event you are reporting. Event A3 you are reporting, or event A5 you are reporting, or event A4 you are reporting. Network can identify that details. So that is the measurement report, explaining what are the measurement results you found. Okay, we go back. So we have learned this RRC reconfiguration is used for measurements. If configured, mobile can send a measurement report when the event criteria is met or when the periodic event is met. Great. What else we can use this RRC connection reconfiguration for? Performing reconfiguration with sync, nothing but handover. So network can ask the mobile equipment, hey, by using the same message, RRC reconfiguration itself, that means mobile sent measurement report to the network, reporting about its situation. Network can come back and tell the mobile equipment that, hey, it is the time for you to get out of my cell, go into the adjacent cell. It'll ask you by providing you this, reconfiguration with sync. This package will be present inside your RRC reconfiguration message. So when that arrives, when that is done, mobile will leave the cell. So I'll show you this in an XNAP handover case. So mobile is sending RRC reconfiguration to UE. It is configuring measurements in this message. Mobile accepted. It is sending source engineer node, which typically represents Gnode B, source Gnode B, that I'm accepting your measurements. Thank you very much for configuring. I started measuring the cells that you have requested me to measure. I'm measuring the present cell plus adjacent cells. I will report you. After some time passed, mobile found out that indeed one event is satisfied. For example, it is reporting event A3 to source engineer node, reporting that, hey, adjacent cell is looking better than the present cell. Now it is the decision-making power of the Gnode B to decide whether to go for a handover or not, based on this report. Depending on the load conditions, etc., source Gnode B would make a decision, obviously. So it sends a request to the target engineer node by using XNAP protocol, because two Gnode Bs can speak to each other. So there is a handover request sent from source engineer node to target engineer node. Target engineer node would come back reporting that, yes, I'm accepting your handover request. I'm okay to accept this guy into my cell. So here is the details. It will pack a lot of details, including dedicated preamble, dedicated PRACH resource, etc. And this guy would come up with a new configuration for the subscriber. Whatever the configuration that is going on for the subscriber in the source Gnode B, for example, mobile might be having 4 radio bearers. Target Gnode B may not accept the 4 radio bearers. It can tell the source Gnode B that I'm accepting only 3 radio bearers for the subscriber. 1 radio bearer I have decided to drop because I don't have enough resources to provide service for all the radio bearers. So I'm dropping 1. It can report it to the source. So that changed configuration details would be sent in this handover request acknowledgement, plus that is what we call as reconfig. The reconfig details would be present. Plus, it is also going to contain dedicated, preamble related information for your contention-free random access procedure. Sent to source engineer node. Special preamble is being provided now to the source engineer node. Okay, so what does the source engineer node do at this stage? Decide to trigger the handover. So it sends out a message to the UE containing RRC reconfiguration, but in the cell group config, it will mention the cell group details as the target cell related details. Also, inside that cell group details, it is going to enable this reconfiguration with sync. We studied the cell group config yesterday, but we did inside that we did not see reconfiguration with sync, because the cell group config can be part of your RRC reconfiguration. Today morning also we have seen, because as part of radio bearer configuration, you can have the cell group config present. So it is going to send cell group config, but inside that it is going to pack this reconfiguration with sync. So ask the mobile, hey, I'm reconfiguring you, but the configuration is not related to my cell. It is related to the target cell. Whatever the configuration target cell guy have provided me, that configuration I'm sending you. The radio bearer configuration and everything. Also, I'm sending you the reconfiguration with sync, where you are getting special preamble and PRACH resources for performing non-contention based random access procedure or contention-free random access procedure. Can you please do it for me and leave my cell and get into target engineer node? So mobile would be in this particular situation. Meanwhile, source engineer node can report the SN status transfer, like up to what PDCP numbers it has completed dealing. We have already learned this earlier. So it would report that to the target. So target need to continue from that sequence number onwards once the mobile arrives. Meanwhile, mobile completes the synchronization with the target engineer node cell and performs the contention-free random access procedure by using the special preamble that is sent in this reconfiguration with sync, and it sends out RRC reconfiguration complete as the message 3. Of course, before this, it would be having definitely message 1 and message 2, the special preamble and random access response, which is not shown in this particular picture here because we are studying only RRC level messages. So, but definitely that message one, message two are there. Preamble sending and random access response. So you are sending message three, RRC reconfiguration complete to the NGRAM node. That means, look at it. Reconfiguration is triggered by the source guy, but reconfiguration complete is going to the target by performing, CFRP, contingent free random access procedure. Now, target GNODB detects that the mobile arrived here handover. It will kind of start speaking to the core network. This part I did not explain you earlier, but I'm telling you for the first time. What does the target engineer node do is, it will go and speak to, this AMF component and explains the AMF component that, hey, ask that UPF bugger to change the path towards me. That UPF is still sending the traffic to source GNODB, IP packets in the downlink. It is sending to source GNODB. Like it is not required anymore. Mobile arrived in my cell. So I am reporting it to you because I cannot directly speak to UPF as there is no signaling mechanism between between the GNODB and UPF present. I'm reporting it to you with a path switch request. Tell him about it. So AMF would tell that thing information to UPF. Hey, listen carefully, man. UPF, mobile is no more there under the source NGRAM node. I know that you are sending the data to the source NGRAM node tunnel, the N3 tunnel towards source GNODB. Please stop sending the traffic on N3 tunnel towards the source GNODB. Please start sending it towards target N3 tunnel. So I'm giving you a new tunnel ID, new IP address of the new GNODB in this message. Take that and send the traffic there. Please. AMF demands UPF here. UPF accepts and AMF reports back this success to target NGRAM node, reporting that yes, it is done. I have successfully conveyed that to UPF. UPF starts sending the traffic to you from now onwards. Now you can close the business with the source. You can tell them to shut down. So target would go and speak to the source by using XNAP protocol called as UE context release. We'll see all these messages while we are studying XNAP protocol. But it sends this UE context release message to the source NGRAM node. And it sends to source NGRAM node that I have taken over the subscriber from every point of view. I have even conveyed this information to the core network components to direct the traffic towards me. So I did my job perfectly well. Now I am the sole boss of this particular subscriber. I will deal with this subscriber from now onwards. You can forget about this guy. So please release the UE context and take rest. Maybe you deal with your subscribers. But this guy, leave it to me. Leave him to me. So target NGRAM node reporting to the source NGRAM node. So all these messages are happening on XN interface. This handover request acknowledgement, PDCP PDU status report, like your SN status, or UE context release reporting that everything is successful and asking the source engineer node to discontinue dealing with this subscriber or forget about that subscriber by simply throwing all the information that it has told related to that subscriber. So now, these messages we'll study later. These messages also, we are not right now interested in those messages. We are interested in this cell group config containing reconfiguration with sync. So first I will take you to cell group config, which we have seen yesterday, today morning as well. Cell group config. Inside this, okay, I think I think that linking part is not there here. Anyway, directly we see in the document. First, I'll otherwise show you the other part. I'll show it to you in a reverse direction this time, so that you will understand one more logic. So first, we'll see this reconfiguration with sync. What details would be present in it? Look here. In the reconfiguration with sync, you have the new identity for the UE, new CRNTI, because mobile is moving into new cell will allocate a new ID, new CRNTI, a new RNTA value you get 1 to 65,535. And there is a timer set, which may be typically explaining the mobile equipment in how much time it will have to arrive in the present cell. Next, RACH config dedicated. So you are going to have RACH config dedicated either for uplink or supplementary uplink. But we are ignoring supplementary uplink. If you take uplink, this RACH config dedicated would contain the details about dedicated preambles, which we already have seen. A dedicated preamble and a dedicated PRACH resource that you can use for transmitting your preamble in a contention-free mechanism. So those are the major details that are present in this reconfiguration with sync. But what are we going to do? First, we are going to find where this reconfiguration with sync. From there, we'll go back. Okay. Here it is not there. So let me type. Any letters I have typed wrong? Okay. So if we take a look at this radio bearer config, this radio bearer config, sorry, where is it? It's not there in the radio bearer config. Okay, why it is highlighted? Okay, so you see this reconfiguration with sync as part of this SPCell config. So this SPCell config is part of your cell group config. So in this cell group config, we have the SPCell config. So inside this SPCell config, so it is the cell that network is asking you to move to as part of the SPCell config. And in that you have the details about reconfiguration with sync. This reconfiguration with sync containing your RACH uplink, RACH config dedicated, so details like what is the special preamble and special PRACH resource that you have to use to transmit your contention-free random access procedure. So if these details are present, then mobile understands that, okay, network is asking me to go for a handover. So it has triggered RRC reconfiguration containing a new cell group that belongs to the target cell that for which I have sent the measurement report. So it is basically network is helping me. It is asking me to go to that particular cell by providing that cell details and cell related configuration. And what is the new radio bearers I have to use? Radio bearer configuration from the old cell to new cell also might change. So what is the new configuration I have to use? And that works with what reconfiguration with sync. By using it, you perform CFRP, your contention-free random access procedure. Okay. So where are we at now? In this overall mechanism, So we have completed how mobile can, how the network can use this RRC reconfiguration to either to, without moving the mobile, by keeping the mobile in the same cell, how it can establish or modify or release radio bearers, how it can ask the mobile to measure the um, uh, signal of the present cell and adjacent cells, or how it can trigger a handover by issuing this reconfiguration with sync by providing dedicated preamble related details of the additional adjacent cell to which you are asked to move. So to trigger the handover, same command would be used to without moving the mobile to configure the radio bearers, the same configuration, the same message is used, or to configure the measurements also same message is used. But we did not yet study what is this conditional handover. That part is still pending for us because we have to study only these four parts. These two parts we have ignored. What is this conditional handover? We have to understand. And what is this re-establishment? RRC connection re-establishments. First, we will see this failure part, RRC re-establishment. Then we will look into this conditional handover. What is the difference between normal handover and conditional handover, and various internal linking things related to it. So we take a break. When we come back, we'll finish that remaining portion also. Let us come back. 11:45. So let us meet back after 10 minutes, which is 11:55. Okay.